When I talk to artists about why they are not painting, they often say the same thing. Just not feeling it, I'm waiting for the right time, I don't know if I can do it. But if you scratch these thoughts a little deeper, there is always something else under the surface. They know exactly what they want to try, but they've been secretly trying to avoid it. For example, brushwork, maybe working with a limited color palette, maybe trying out using a much bigger brush, or even painting on a much larger piece of paper, perhaps investing in 100% cotton paper, or painting without a tutorial, or even creating a composition of your own. We avoid these things not because we are lazy or unmotivated. I think what really stops us is the meaning behind what if we try and it does not look or feel good. In today's video, we are not talking about finishing a masterpiece. We're talking about how we're going to begin again. That one skill or one thing that you might be putting off. Because I know that the act of starting is what is the hardest, but it's also the thing that is going to grow you. Alright friends, we need to sit down for this. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee or a matcha latte, whatever that you love, and let's talk about why we avoid hard things. I think that so many of us crave progress in our art, but deep down inside, there is something else that we crave. We also crave control. And difficult techniques kind of take that away. In fact, difficult techniques expose us what are the things that feel shaky and hard for us. These difficult techniques that we might be avoiding also asks us to become beginners once again. And they reveal this gap between where we are, what we admire, and what we want right now. So instead of moving towards it, we tend to go into this loop. We over-refine what we already know, we stay in the safe zone for tutorials, or we just stop painting entirely. But here's my question to you. What are you or what are we avoiding? Instead of seeing this as something to run away from, why don't we start seeing it as an invitation? I've always told my artists in brush movement that learning is not linear. It does not mean that if you are moving from stage 1 to 2, it means that you have already mastered every single thing in stage 1 for you to be able to move to stage 2. In fact, there are so many moments in our learning where I notice we might have strengths and weaknesses in different things. And this is where I want to encourage you to lean into the curiosities of your learning journey, what you are good at, what you notice yourselves refining, repeating, and what are the things that you are avoiding. I want to share with you the stage-by-stage breakdown of the different things that you can start working on today to help you to make one micro step before you take the big step into mastering some of these techniques.
At stage 1, you are getting to know your tools. This is the time where it's kind of like learning a new language. So it's also a good time to think about observing and copying. While you're copying, still have this sense of being able to learn how to form your own movements, even though it may seem a little bit awkward in the beginning. So this is how you are building that muscle memory so that when someone says to let it flow and let it go, your body does not feel as tense. Now here's the thing, I think you don't need to make it perfect. You just need to let your brush kind of meet you at a space where you are trying to get to know it. When you are getting to know the way that your brush moves, the way it touches the paper, instead of fighting it, start watching it. Because this is how we are building trust in ourselves and in the way we are moving with our brush that is truly unique to us. Regardless of whether you are right-handed or left-handed, all of these feelings and experience with your first stage truly comes from contact. Welcome to stage 2. Now when you get to this stage, it's also a time where you started to get momentum because you kind of know what supplies you have, how watercolor and paint and water all works on the paper, but at the same time, there is a little bit of confusion because you might have scrolled through social media or you might have watched lots of videos and as a result seen all kinds of styles. And this is also the time where you are thinking that you want to do it all. And deep down inside, you're also having a little bit of fear that you might be choosing wrong. So instead of keeping your strokes soft and fluid, you end up dabbing instead of committing. You end up playing safe and heading to the next tutorial to give you all the steps. Now, I want to invite you to do something different. Now, instead of defaulting straight into safety because you are afraid, here is where I want you to start thinking about one thing that you already know and start applying it, even if it's in repetition. This is going to give you the rhythm and the movement, and that safety in knowing and security will allow you to then turn it into expression. Start to take that same stroke and adjust it by changing up color values or even thinking about other ways of expressing, say putting color pencils or even start putting new color combinations together while it's still wet. There are so many different things that you can consider doing, but what we are trying to do here is to reduce the overwhelm and take the momentum that you currently hold in your head and start putting it on paper. Instead of allowing yourself to get inside your head, start to come out from yourself and begin to breathe a little through your brush, allowing the movements and strokes guide you, and then find flowers inside of your marks. This is going to be so much more powerful because then instead of wanting to do it all, you start to observe what's happening in front of you. Now, if you've come into stage 3, this is the space where you most likely have already built the skill, you know the techniques, you probably might know how to replicate tutorials pretty well. But at the same time, you're still waiting for permission. You ask yourself, is this how it's supposed to look? You continue to collect tutorials, you are avoiding starting your own compositions, and without anything in front of you, whether it's someone's guidance or maybe some inspiration, your confidence starts to feel wobbly. Now, in this stage, let's start peeling back the layers of what composition actually means. This is also the time where you are learning to make decisions with whatever skills and techniques you already know, and you start to put it on paper. Now, with the emergence of your voice, it doesn't just begin with ideas. It truly begins with structure. So here is what I encourage you to do. I want you to start thinking about using a little bit of planning just to simplify, break down, and also allow yourself the opportunity to peel back the layers on what you already know and start finding the possibilities where it comes to layout. Start drawing and sketching out simple thumbnail compositions. And these could be as simple as diagonals or maybe just block in some florals using a couple of different color values. And from there, map it out into a floral composition. Now, everything starts off with some structure. And when you have ideas, don't forget that instead of facing it face on a blank page, it might actually be easier for you to doodle, sketch it out, and play around with different ways in which you could put flowers together before you actually start tackling the blank page. This is also going to give you a little bit of a warm-up and at the same time build some confidence so that when you get into the painting, all you have to do is to choose your color values, your brushes, and also the position of your florals, and you're good to go. Now, before we end off at this stage, I thought that it would be so good for us to talk about how the goal isn't about perfection. In fact, this is all about arrangement, balance, and also giving yourself the opportunity to see relationships inside of your artwork. You want to make sure there is connectivity and also your ability to start thinking about ways in which you can balance the elements in your painting so that it looks cohesive and visually stunning. So in stage 4, this is the time where you already know how to fill a page. In fact, we no longer lack any techniques or skills, but this is the part where we need to exercise a different kind of skill, the skill of restraint. We need to ask the real question of whether we are able to leave space out. This stage is truly about choices. Every petal, every brushstroke, every leaf, it should have some connection and relationship. Instead of putting out elements for the sake of it, we start to think about how we can inject in the use of space to be part of the painting. You see, so many of us have been conditioned to think that in order for something to look complete, we need to fill it up. Whether it's filling up the space, filling up the white parts, and we start to avoid the quiet spots. You overlayer and you keep adding. But here is where I want to invite you to see that when it comes to your painting, instead of wanting to fill up every single space, mastery is not in the doing more. It's actually in knowing when to stop. So in stage 4, I want you to think about taking out an old painting and start redoing it, maybe with 50% fewer elements, maybe push the background a little bit more, or think about how you can use a limited color palette or even paint in monochrome. Because like a song or even like a dish, you can't add too much salt and you can't play all the notes and instruments because it's not what you add into the mix. It's not what you say, but it's how the things that are left unsaid in the dish, the subtle tones and the subtle flavors, that is truly what creates meaning and makes the experience so much more magical.
So as you can see, you don't have to finish everything today. You don't need a masterpiece. In fact, you just need to start. And that can already feel a little scary. But remember, we're gonna take those fears as clues, and I'm gonna be here right by you as you walk those small little steps. And if you want some help with regard to how to get started, well, I've got the best space for you. That's exactly why I've created the Artist Passage Hub. You can find out more in the link in the description. Basically, it will share with you the different stages that I have mapped out for artists who would love to paint loose florals so that you can finally get clarity, direction, and of course, a space to start.